What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of All Out War. I am Turner, and I'm in my makeshift studio with a very special guest, Jessica. What's up, Jessica?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm actually pretty excited, to be honest with you. So it's a bittersweet. Um, this is a bittersweet episode because if you did not listen to the last episode, our prior episode, you need to go listen to it right now before you go any further on this one. If you're up to date, then you would know that Rosie is taking a break. He's on a hiatus. He's got some stuff he's dealing with in life, and he wanted to take a break from the podcast. And we weren't sure what we were going to do. And the only thing that I knew that God was telling me and Rosie through de facto through other people as well was that the podcast needed to continue to go forward. And so you had already been on as a guest with us several times. And so it's probably no surprise to anyone that we have asked you to take that spot and to fill that role. So, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do Did You Knows. That,
I could never do them like Rosie does them.
that's right. He's the king of Did You Knows, and I wouldn't even want to try anyways if I were you. But I'm excited because I think the couple episodes that we've had on with you, not only have they been dynamic and just really fun to talk about, and I just think that your perspective, the things that you research, and your opinion on things, I think it really matters, and to have that in the voice of All Out War to me is like awesome. So I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, you were already on the team before Rosie left. I think we alluded to that, but and I
Yeah.
think you're not the first, right, Jessica? Like it started off with me, Rosie, and this guy named Cody, and then he went and did his thing, and then it was me and Rosie, and then it was me, Rosie, and then we had Rachel in for a while, and then Rachel had to go her way, and then it was like me and Rosie again, and then it was like you came around, and then Rosie leaves. And so I don't know what happens if I leave. Like,
Please,
no, I don't want to.
what's just incredible about this is that I had this year had it in. I was praying to God, and I had the thought, I want a podcast. But it was one of those like, okay, God, if you want me to do a podcast, I am not starting that by myself, and someone's going to have to do it for me, and I'm just going to need to show up. And here we are.
See how God works? It's amazing. And that's how he's been with this whole thing for the last 5 years, literally. It's just he works it's all him. It's all him.
Mhm.
So it's so much fun. Well, we're excited because I'm excited. I know our listeners are going to be excited. And tonight you're going to share something special with us. But before we jump into that, I got to make my famous saying that I always say, which is to sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy.
You're listening to the All Out War podcast.
Wonder if we should get new music in this new phase.
So slow because I listen to my podcast so fast that it's so weird to hear it slow like that.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that. I have some friends that listen to podcasts on 2 times speed, and I can't do it. It's hard for me. I guess you're a quick listener, I guess.
I was just doing a podcast for history for my kiddos for homeschool, and it was double time, and they're like, "Mom, we can't understand this."
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've tried. It's just, I can't do it. But so tonight, you're going to share your testimony, and this is like a get to know Jessica episode. And I think it's the perfect way to start off with you, coming in the co-host chair, because I think that it'll be good. There's things I don't know, and it's kind of crazy we're still getting to know each other. Like our families. I mean, listeners don't know this. You live like 10 hours away from, from where Rosie and I are. So it's a long ways away. But thank God for technology, even though it's given us trouble tonight. But
As
so,
always.
oh, I know every time you've been on, it's been an issue.
Yeah.
It's a sign. So, well, I'm gonna kick it over to you.
Yeah. This is something, having my testimony out there. There's people that have asked me on my Instagram account, like messages like, "Oh, why don't you tell us your testimony?" And it's just not something I've ever done publicly. It's it's a whole other thing. It's one thing to be like sitting on one and talking to somebody about it, but for all to hear, there's just, it's your life. But I just thought it was kind of a perfect time to share what I want to share about it and have a little background for people to know where I come from,
Yeah.
Um, I'll say that in all the testimonies that I have heard and encountered, there's always been like one or two themes of lies in the person's life, and I'll say that one of my biggest that I had a theme of was that I was abnormal, like I was just different than everyone, and two is that God was a great God. He just forgot about me.
Oh, wow.
Like, just not for me. Like, I was invisible. And that has just carried on. And there's times in my life where it still like rises to the surface, and it's just something that I personally have dealt with. But anyway, so I think those things will probably make sense with my story. But just taking it way back, I was a child that my parents divorced. They married young, had a baby young, split up when I was 8 months old. So my whole childhood was week on, week off custody, like 1 week this house, 1 week that house. And they were severely different houses, like completely different houses. So in one, my dad married real quick after he got a divorce with my mom, to my stepmother. They had a baby right away. She already had a child. So I had, on that side, a half sister and a stepsister. And then my mom had gotten married, and I had a stepdad and eventually a half brother but on my dad's side, my stepmother was unfortunately something that they didn't really see until a few years later, but like she had one of the worst cases of bipolar disorder, apparently, from what one of the asylums have said about her. But she was atheist and absolutely extremely verbally abusive to me and manipulative, which was something that I hadn't even wrapped my head around, that like, oh, like I'm not being physically abused, I'm fine. But y'all, if you were ever verbally abused, like you need healing from that. It's a real thing. It messes with your mind. And I hope that if anything, anybody struggling with that, go get some help with that, because you need it. I needed it very much. But so my dad was raised Christian. I wasn't. He, got married, and there wasn't religion with my stepmother. So, and then on my mom's side, they weren't. I think my grandparents on my mom's side were Catholics at some point, but like it was just nothing. it wasn't an important thing for me to grow up in. It wasn't a thing. Yeah. Except for when I saw my grandparents at my dad's side. It's like we'd spend the night, Saturday night, and I had to go to the church in the morning because if you're at your grandma's house, you have to be at church with the foo dress on in the morning. Anyway, so it was about when I was 8. We went to church at Easter, and I think I was around 8 years old, and I had always been curious about God. Like, if there is a savior out there, like, I want it, because I was having a horrible time at 8 years old still. Like, it was like, this was my life. Anyway, so I did an altar call. My grandma, I was standing next to my grandma in church on Easter, and my stepmom and my dad were there because they'd go on Easter. The pastor, was doing the, give your life to Jesus and get baptized. And I'm like, yeah, I want in on this. And if you knew me as a child, like, this was just like, I was introvert, wallflower, like, please let me be invisible. Please don't, like, I don't want to, like, stir the pot, or I was always walking on eggshells, is basically, like, I was very quiet, very introverted, perfect, didn't do anything wrong kind of thing. And that's not just me saying that. You can talk to my parents and they will say the same thing. But anyway, so I got up and was just like, okay, I'm walking down, and this is a big church. I walk on, and my grandma follows me, and they take me into the room, and it's like talking to me about baptism, and I'm like so excited. Like, this is what I need in my life. This is what is gonna save me from the crap that I was living through. And anyway, wasn't able to get baptized. I don't know what happened. Like, they said I needed to go, like my stepmom or whatever. So we went home. And we were going up the stairs, me and my sisters, and she says, she says to my sisters, go get dressed for the day, like, get out your church clothes. And I said, what about me? And she said, well, it seems to be like you're making your own decisions these days.
Oh.
I never got baptized.
Wow.
They wouldn't let me get baptized. So that was like my first, like, encounter with God, that I wasn't able to reach him. Like, I wanted him and I couldn't have him. So let's see. So through that,
so
I feel like
can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Just for a quick question. Did you pray to receive Christ?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
That night, that's what I did. Like, if you're real, please come into my heart. And I believe, till this day, I still believe, like, that was the night I was sealed for heaven. That was when it happened. So through middle school, though, going through, like, I got into the wrong crowd, and I got into dressing gothic, and my favorite store was Hot Topic, and I wanted to disappear, and the goths, no one ever messed with them. Like, it was just, and they were accepting. They were like, I don't care who you are, you can hang out with us, like, behind the library. Like, it was just somewhere where I could disappear, and no one, and everybody would leave me alone, and I could just read my books, But I, got into, like, within all of that, it's completely demonic. Like, there's, I went to Ozfest, and my favorite bands were Korn, System of a Down, like that era, when they were super popular. I saw Rob Zombie, like, in a mosh, when I was in a mosh pit. I was like front and center Rob Zombie, and he had 666 all over his stage. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I know that's wrong, but it's just art, right? Like Marilyn Manson shredding the Bible right in front of me. Like it's just, it was like a justification, even though I knew, like there was always this nagging thing behind me. Like there's always something calling me the whole time, but with week on, week off with my custody situation, my stepmother was so controlling. I couldn't wear what I wanted. I had to wear whatever she picked out. And I mean, even until middle school, and I had to have a separate backpack. I had to have, it was just ridiculous. Like she controlled every aspect of my life. And so on my mom's side, my mom was like, she knew what I was dealing with over there and like kind of let me free. So I was like, could you imagine a kid showing up as pink one week and goth the next? Like people did not get me.
That'll send confusion to everybody.
Oh goodness. Anyway,
and as if being a teenager is not hard enough either, right? Already.
Yeah. Yeah. It was difficult. I didn't fit in anywhere. And that's why I read books during lunch. And got really, really good grades because I just, like, and the way if I got good grades, no one at home would be messing with me. Like, just staying under the radar, keeping my head down. And every single day, my dream was like, I could not wait till I was 18. Like, I can just leave. I don't have to be under the control of my parents' whims or mistakes or whatever was going on in their life. So high school started, and I instantly get into a toxic, awful relationship with a football player in high school, and that was horrible. There was at times where it was like almost physically abusive, and I didn't know any, like, it's hard to say like I didn't know, but I didn't, like, I wasn't going to church. I wasn't, like, my church day was like when I was 8 and I gave my life to the Lord. I knew he was real, and I would pray a lot, but that was the extent of it. And I really looked up to my grandparents because they seemed so secure and solid, and just seemed like they had their life together. Like it was just like a slow, sweet, solid life. And I'm like, that's what I want, and they knew Jesus, and that's what I equated it to. But but anyway, so in high school was going headfirst into a bad relationship, and I didn't have any of the Christian morals, I'll say, like drinking, drugs, being promiscuous. Like it wasn't something that was bad in my mind. It was fun, and I got good grades, and that was the extent of it. Like I was a good person and got good grades, and I felt like I was mature enough to handle anything because I had to grow up myself and take care of myself in that way, mature wise. Like I couldn't mess up. So in high school, I got through it because of that, and the fallout there was a lot of fallouts with that guy, but I went into a severe depression. But with the first fallout, my stepmom was part of it, and she was very angry at me for being so sad all the time, and like it was just not exciting for her. But it was shortly after that, though, she had an affair, and my dad had caught her, and so they divorced over that. And I I got my freedom. Like, my dad got this big house right by my high school, and I could have friends over all the time, and I had a pool table in my living room, and I was just living it up. Like, it was the best thing. And and my mom, she was a single mom from the majority of my childhood, and she had a divorce with my stepdad. I think I was 7 or 8, but it wasn't anything that I remember being awful. Like, I remember them handling it very well for me, and my brother. Just from my perspective, maybe it was bad, but I had so much other crap going on that I
Right. Yeah.
noticed. Um, but anyway, so she was, always single momming it and getting it done. Like, she was working, and we'd live in like really tiny apartments around the area just to keep me in the district that my dad had me in, had lived in, and for my school. And there was times when we had to like move back to my Nana's house, which I absolutely loved because that was my family. Like, my mom has 3 brothers, and they were just my world, my uncles, and they were all younger, so they were all at my Nana's house. And anyway, it was kind of my refuge. But so it was, even though it was messy on my mom's side, it was still it was my safe place, really.
Yeah.
But when my dad had divorced my mom, I had like, that was out of me. Like, okay, I don't have to go and be in 1-bedroom apartments. I don't have, like, I had, the life over here. And so I said, like, hey, I'm going to be living with my dad more, and I'll see you every other weekend or something. And anyway, but I got into just a bad crowd even deeper, and just spiraled. It was just like one of those, I got what I wanted. She was out of my life, like my stepmom, like, and I could do whatever I want and still get good grades, so no one can talk to me about it. But she tailspin. It was bad. She spiraled worse, and she got into, well, she was always doing, I don't know, always, but from what I remember, her room always smelled like pot. And I didn't realize what the smell was until I went to Ozfest the first time. I'm like, wait. So she got into like harder drugs, and I don't actually know the one of choice, but all of her bones started breaking, and she just got really weak, and she had deals. It was really hard to get the news that they were divorcing, only because of my sister, and I was like protective over my sister, and that was really hard. But so that was a lot going on in that sense of like, I was, back and forth with this guy, and then that divorce happened. So I was separated from my sister, and I didn't know who my friends were, and I started not being able to eat. I lost a lot of weight. This was the summer of my sophomore year, I believe. I lost a lot of weight, and I just remember being in bed, like it was summer, and my dad was, at work all the time, and I was just in my bed, completely miserable, not being able to move some days, and my dad would come home and he'd be like, "Did you eat anything today? Like, can you eat?" Like, trying to get me to eat, and
wow.
like he didn't know what to do, and I had it one day. Sorry.
It's all right.
This is the sad part, but I was skin and bones at this point, And I looked down at my hands and they were just skeletons. Like, I was just like, I'm going to wither away and die anyway. I may as well do it now. So I had it in my mind that I was going to kill myself. And I had a plan and everything. It was just, this was it. Like, there was no point in being here. Hold on.
Yeah.
But in that moment,
I was going to take your time.
Yeah, I don't want to like do crying voice through this whole thing. So you guys, I'm trying to help you understand.
No.
A crier is, I don't know if y'all know about that, but I cry all the time. Cry. So I was like on my knees looking at my hands and they were skeletons, and I had a plan in my head, and I heard that little nagging voice that I have felt my whole life. And it said, why don't you just try this church up the street? There was a church up the street. Like, literally, we were at that point, we were in a 2-bedroom apartment. Me and my dad. And so I was like, in my head, I was like, fine, I can do that. What, there's nothing to lose here. And I'll go this Sunday and then I can literally come home and do it. I had that like in my head, like Monday, my dad goes to work, I can do it. And at that point, my dad had already started going back to church after he got divorced, and he got really into church. And I kind of resented that a little bit, because I'm like, where was this my whole life, you know? Love my dad. I'm not. That's what's hard about testimonies, is that like, like there's this one quote that one of my favorite authors had said that if they didn't want to be part of the story, they should have acted better.
That's great.
It's just part of my story, y'all. I have a good relationship with my dad. I love him. So Sunday, I went up there with my dad, and I went to the youth group, and I was just immediately surrounded. And, you know, I'm not a people person, especially back then. I was just very much an introvert, very much not wanting to be around people. And especially just because I always felt so abnormal. Like, what am I no one's going to connect with me. I'm just different than everybody. And so, especially church people, like in high school, the church people in high school, they were sweet, but I'm like, this little Bible verse that you just handed to me is not doing anything for me. They had their little, like, that was their little outreach, you know, on Valentine's Day. I remember them handing out cards, and their Bibles, but they all had their little benches, like the Mean Girls, how like everybody had their own tables. Like, it was definitely like that. Like, Christians had their little benches, and the Goths had their place by the library, and football players were up on the hill, which was so weird because I wasn't accepted onto that hill, even though my boyfriend was on there, because I was Goth. But so anyway, I went up to this church, and they surrounded me, and they had said that they're all excited because, like, the next week was their church camp. They're all talking about it, and someone said, one of the girls had said, like, oh, we have an extra spot. And I'm like, one, no. And then two, my dad doesn't even have the money for it. My dad was working 3 jobs. He's always been just such a hard worker, but like, the court system screwed him over. The court, like, that's a whole other story, but like, he would go to my stepmom's house to get my sister, and she would attack him. And like, this one time she attacked him, and he left and she called the cops, and he went to jail. And that was like my homecoming weekend. I couldn't go to homecoming because he was in jail. I was at my grandma's house, and I didn't know if he would come out, and that was another really hard part of my life. But so he had gone to court and everything, but like until he could fight all of this, like he was paying my stepmom like more than half of his paycheck because of alimony and child support, and while she was spending it all on drugs and trying to kill herself every once in a while. Like I think that was my first homecoming in freshman year. Like my dad, he had to take her to the hospital. She got picked up by an ambulance because she tried to kill herself.
Wow.
She was always doing something around important times in my life. Like that was my home. I was getting ready for homecoming, and that happened. Anyway, so then the next year, the next homecoming, he's in jail because of her. Anyway, it's a mess of a mess. I'm not going to even dive deeper into that, but
so
I forgot so I went to.
You were going to walk up. You were going to kill yourself. You made a plan. You were going to go to church. You walked up the street.
Yeah, and so they wanted me to go to their church camp, and I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And so my excuse was, "Oh, my dad can't pay for it." And they're like, "Well, we have a scholarship." And I'm like, come on. They were all very positive and happy and energetic, and that was just not me. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. But my dad was super excited for me to go. So a week later, I am on this bus going up to this camp with nobody that I know, like no one. 16 years old. Anyway, so I'm at this camp, and still like these. I mean, they're the sweetest girls, and like I kind of feel a little bit about what I was going through at that time. I mean, it was pretty noticeable, so it's like hard to like I was 20 pounds underweight at that point.
Wow.
The doctors were all convinced I was anorexic, but it was truly that I was completely depressed and didn't know how to eat like I wanted to. It was just, it wasn't because I wanted to be skinny or like, and that's actually kind of a stigma thing. Like that's not actually why most people have eating disorders, because they want to be skinny. Like that's not it. It's a brain thing. But anyway, so I told them a little bit about what I was going through, and every single meal, they sat around the table until I was finished, and they like got my mind on other things. And I don't know if the girls knew what to do with me. I wasn't like invited to go like paintballing and like all of the fun camp stuff, nor did I want to do any of that stuff. Like I just wanted to be in my sleeping bag and sleeping all day. And but there's this one time that I ventured off and I sat on a swing by myself, and this friend, this girl I didn't know at that point, turned out she became my best friend after this. But she sat down on the swings and just listened. And she just asked me if I was okay. I don't even remember the whole conversation, but she was there. Like she just sat with me, and that's what I needed. Jesus, I needed that. So she, I had a lot going on, obviously, and so she brought me to one of the leaders to talk to one of the leaders, and I sat down with the leader, and she talked through about I was saying, I've known about God since I was 8, but look at me now, look what I've done. And he's not even paid attention to me this whole time anyway. But, I've not been living a Christian life by any means. And she had told me that I was this slate was like clean. Like you could just do that. Like that's just done. And that I was as white as snow. And that was I think that was there was a song with white as snow in it back then, but I listened to it on repeat after that. But anyway, so I'd say at that point it was like a rededication of my life to God, and the mountaintop experience came back down the mountain, and your life is still there. But at this point, I was I had a youth group I was going to every week, and every Wednesday night and Sunday morning I was at church, and I was determined to figure this out. And I think a lot of it was that I thought he was a God just looking down and seeing what I would do next, kind of works based, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't screw this up now. I screwed it up already, and I'm not doing it again. And obviously, by your own strength, you can't do that. But it was about this time that my stepmother I had told my sister to come spend the night with me at my dad's house, come hang out. And my stepmom told her that if she left, she would kill herself. And this is a threat that she's done before. So I went and picked up my sister and left. And she came to spend the night. And the next morning, we get a phone call. My sister gets a phone call from my stepmom's druggy boyfriend at that time, just screaming, saying that she's dead. It's one of the worst days of my life, where I'm holding my sister, and she's crying, and I'm calling my dad, and just didn't know what to do, and this person that I hated is gone, but this person I love so much is in so much pain because of it, and how selfish. On the death certificate it says that she overdosed, but we all kind of had knew the conclusion of that.
Yeah.
What really went on. And so burying her, though, I had so much hate pent up for that woman, so much hate, so much damage and brokenness from that. And seeing her casket just start going down into the dirt, I had all of this hate and anger, and I realized that it didn't affect her at all. It was all she's in the dirt now, and that was all on me. And it was just this pivotal moment in my life when I realized of the actual consequence of unforgiveness.
Yeah.
That's not. God says forgive for your own sake. It was after that I didn't know what to do with all of that. I didn't know what to do with all of the pain and the hurt and the anger, the pure hatred. It's a genuine statement that I 100% hated that woman.
Wow.
and it had nowhere to go. Like that hate had nowhere to go. And so I started getting awful, straight up demonic dreams. It was as if it was just, it's as if the demons didn't know where to go. That's what not being theologically correct or anything, but that's what it felt like. I was just surrounded by her demons.
Wow.
I saw them. They were around me all the time. They were in my dreams. I couldn't sleep. I heard them. And this is where it gets to the point of why. I mean, there's a lot of why, but this is a big why of me not saying this publicly. Like, this is not, I didn't know what was happening because the church never talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, the I was at, like, at that point, like, I didn't know what was going on. So therefore furthering you are abnormal, Jess. There is something wrong with you. You know, that lie of, God is a good God, and he helps people except for me. Like, that was, he's not holding back these demons from me. There must be, it's just Jess, like, she's in the corner, you know. I actually had a blog called Girl in the Corner at that point. Anyway, so that, I feel like I spiraled at that point. I started living a double life. I got into that. I also got the grades and got into Azusa Pacific University in Southern California. So if you don't know, it's fancy Christian college, fancy expensive Christian college. Worked my butt off in high school.
It's beautiful. It sits across from the Pacific Ocean, up on a hill. Where all my friends went, and I got in, and I was, you know, that was the next chapter in my life. I thought, this is where I get what I wanted. Like, I get like the Christian lifestyle, basically. Like, I get to be in the dorms. I get to go to chapel with everybody, and I like, it's like a Christian life that I always just wanted. Like, I wanted to escape. Like, that was my escape. And my dad, obviously, on paper, looked like he had a lot of money, but this was at the point where Cinda was, my stepmother was still alive, and she had more than half of his paycheck, so it looked like he had enough money for me to go to APU, but I wasn't able to. And anyway, so it was after the battle fact that we realized I can't go, and so I'm stuck at a community college while my friends go off, and that's just another, Jess, you don't get that. No, not for you. And I started partying again. Well, that's the other thing, is that, like, the friends that stayed behind, I started doing youth. I was a youth leader for the junior high at the church that I was saved at. And, you know, I was getting close to that Christian lifestyle, but I was also partying on the weekends with all of these leaders. Like, we were clubbing in LA, like bar hopping on the weekends, and having these ridiculous drunken parties at their houses, and it was a double life. And then I started, you know, I ended up living with a boy, a guy that was a youth leader with me, and we started living together. And it was, in my mind, I'm like, this is okay because everybody else is doing it. Like, everybody else in this church that has been raised Christian, like,
it was at this church. It was hard to find someone that was not raised Christian. Like I was abnormal in that way. Like I didn't know, I did not know about the whole Samson's hair thing until a few years ago. Like there's just these stories that people knew their whole lives, and like I'm still finding out Bible stories. But yeah, that's so. I ended up getting into. I needed an escape because when you're saved, you can't stay like that.
Yeah.
And I needed something new, and all my friends were gone anyway, and I needed to get away from these friends. So I went to a new church, got highly involved in that. I met, just gems of God. It's just so good. Like I was surrounded with just amazing people. But also, like, me escaping that church wasn't facing anything. So I went into another relationship with another guy, and just the same old, and it was just the same thing again. And I realized, oh wait, this is me. Whoops. So I was just like, that's done is done. I am getting baptized. and this is it. This is it for me. And I really leaned into this family that God surrounded me, and this is a homeschooled, incredible family. This woman is a saint, and she raised five children, and they're all doing incredible careers now. And anyway, one of them is still my very best friend, and we talk all the time. But she has seen me through it, man. I got baptized, left everything behind, and this is the new me. And one of those old friends from that old church called me up, said, I'm dedicating my baby. She got pregnant and got married, and I'm dedicating my baby, and do you want to come to church to see the dedication? We'll go. So the plan was go to dinner that night, and I'll spend the night at their house and go to church in the morning. And that night, her husband took advantage of me.
Oh, no.
And the police believe it was in the drink that they had for me. She had gone to sleep, and I was on the couch, and I don't even know exactly what, like, I knew it was happening, but I was zonked, like I was just. And so when he went to sleep and I finally came to, I ran out of there, and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was in the car screaming at God.
Wow.
How dare you? I just couldn't stop saying that. How dare you? That's all I really remember. And like I was road, like I was all over the road because I was still like messed up in the head. Like I was like whatever was in that drink. And I showed up at one of my friends' doors, and they didn't know what was happening to me. I'd say the most traumatic of that was afterwards. The most traumatic stuff that happened was that I was like clawing at her door, and my fingernails were all broken because I was clawing. Like I didn't know what else to do, and I couldn't talk. I was in like a traumatic state. I was shaking, and they called the ambulance and had me go to the hospital, and they did all the whole rape kit and all of that stuff, and I had to do all of these interviews and repeat it over and over and over again. And that was.
Did you confront? Did he get confronted?
Because of the way that it happened, there was no marks or anything on me, and so they couldn't prove it. They could just prove that he was there. They got his DNA, but proved that it was force. And so so they had to set up. So this is where it's all traumatic for and anybody that has ever gone through this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That it's more traumatic. the after effect is more traumatic. It's embarrassing to say. It's embarrassing to have gone through. Like that's the feelings of it. Like when it's not even my fault, and like this is something else I have to work through and say to people, and so and then with all the whole police thing, they had to catch him saying it. So I had to go to the police office, and there was two, like he was on recording, and there was two officers at a whiteboard and telling me what to say to him, like writing it on.
They're like leading you in the conversation. Yeah.
Like I had, like they did a whole hour of training with me beforehand, and like I had to talk to him again. Like I had to talk in order to get justice. And like, what am I going to do? Like, what if he does this to somebody else? Like I have justice. And so, they tried, and like he had to go. And so what happened, like it was not successful. And so what happened was that they brought the recording with me. They had me take the recording thing home and told me to turn it on when he calls back, because he said he was going to call back. And he called back, and I had this long stretch of a conversation that would have gotten him in there. It was in the conversation that they had enough proof, and the recorder didn't work.
Oh my goodness.
So nothing ever happened to him. And actually on that conversation, he had said he went to church the next morning and had asked God for forgiveness, and he thinks everything's fine now. So it was one day for him of a mess up, and he never thought about it again.
Right.
He was fine.
Wow.
So that was complete anger. I got into, and I was so, there's things that I talk about this season in my life. I never talked about why that season was so dark for me. But I had locked, thank God, like this family had an extra room for me, because at that moment I was living on my aunt's couch. I was, 18, I don't know. I was on my aunt's couch because my dad had remarried and moved away, and I needed to stay around my college and my friends. And so I was living on my aunt and uncle's couch and out of my car, which is also another abnormal situation. So I was very angry with God, and I shut myself in a room, and I threw the Bible. I said, I'm not picking it up one more time. Like, how dare you? Like I did all I could. Like, I watched all of the ghost shows that I could. And like, I did all of these like things that I thought would make him angry. It was just really like a childish situation. And I spent months just rereading all of Harry Potter and just trying to trying to just ignore my life. Like I just wanted to ignore everything. I got back into like dressing like goth and kind of like just a big old screw you to God. But there was this church that was out of town that my friend was going to, and it was like this youth group thing on Wednesday, like college group, really. It was a college group Wednesday nights, and she was just like, you should go with me. And she kept on saying that. I'm like, no. But the thing is that in this time that I was cooped up, ignoring God, I had the very clear knowledge and, that he was there with me still, like he wouldn't leave. And there's this, I got really into Flyleaf in that moment. Do you know what Flyleaf is? It's a band.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Christian band, and they had just come out with this new album, but and I just like listened to it over and over and over again. But one of the songs said, "Sitting closer than my pain, he knew each tear before it came," and that was like, it angered me that he was there, like I don't want anything to do with you, and you need to leave, and he would not leave, because I'm sealed. I was sealed since I was 8.
Well, what a radical change, though, from being 8 years old and longing to have what you were hoping for, what you walked down that aisle to commit your life to, and now you know, through all these circumstances which are tragic and horrible and sinful that were inflicted upon you and that you experienced, you don't want them around.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. Not something I ever thought I would be at in this point. But because I was a victim of a crime, this is the booby prize, that you get a free psychologist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, nice, except the psychologist did not know Jesus.
Of course not. Yeah.
But also, I guess y'all I didn't say, but my passion was psychology. I was, again, in 8th grade, abnormal Jess, carrying around these like in-depth, like college level books on psychology, and that's what I read at lunch. Like that's, and I was sure I was going to be, I was going to pick my way out of this, heal myself with psychology, and become a psychologist and help other people through what I went through.
Yeah. Yep.
That was my goal. That was my whole goal in life. And so to and that was still my goal. I was, my major was going to be psychology, but I didn't know how that was going to happen because I was going to a dumb community college at that point. And so that's what I had in my head, like right. I can't get to who I want to be if I don't go to APU. So it was kind of like the jackpot for me, like in my mind, like I get to go to a real life psychologist. Like it was not just like a therapist, but like someone that's a doctor that went through everything that I've wanted to go through to get to where I wanted to be her. I had my car picked out of what I was going to spend with the money that I got as being a psychologist, like a vision board. So I was super excited to go and to have it for free because I could never afford it. My dad could never afford that. Because insurance doesn't pay for that. They only pay for
right. They still don't pay for anything.
If I wanted to become a man, they would pay for
Right.
it. Not someone with problems like mine. And so it was a godsend in a sense that I was able to work through some really deeper issues, and she had that too. She said, like, this is your prize. This is what you get. You get to go through everything that you went through in your childhood and face it and get through it. Like, and I did. There was a lot of work done with her, but just some things that happened, like she was talking about, at one point during this, I did start going back to church, to this youth group, not back to my other churches, but like to this youth group that was half an hour away, because I didn't want to be around anybody where I was at. Like, and because my friend was insistent, like, you need to go check this out. And so I went, and anyway, so I, like, at one point had like a boyfriend from there, and, this is the one that I'm going to be, pure with. That was my, like, I am not messing this up. And anyway, so the psychologist was just like, oh, so you have a boyfriend? Like, I was talking about my new boyfriend, and she's just like, oh, okay, well, have you guys had sex? I'm like, well, no, because Christians don't do that until they're married. And she's just like, well, you have to get back on the horse. That's what you have to do after a rape. You have to get on the horse. And I'm like, this isn't going to work out.
Wow.
So
she said that.
Yeah. So I never went back after that. It's just not something I could get past. And I really, looking back and knowing what I know with this degree in psychology, like that was not the best thing for her to say to a rape victim.
Right.
Anyway, that's not part of it, y'all. Like, if your therapist is saying that's not part of it. Yeah. That is not a protocol. So,
wow.
God is absolutely incredible in this. Like, I started going to this church, and there was this pastor that just, why this college group was so popular. This pastor was just incredible. But I had reached out to him, and I said, basically laid it out. Like, I messaged him on Facebook, I think, and I was just like, hey, this is what happened to me, and I don't know where to go from here. Like I don't know where to go from here. And it was so awesome. He set me up with a meeting with his wife, and like, it was the first time someone had told me, like, hey, make sure you're not living as a victim, because you're victorious in Christ. And it's not something it didn't occur to me that I should even be looking at it like that. And anyway, it was profound. And I leaned into this church, and it's just this crazy thing that happened. The church had this deal with a Christian university, and said, hey, we're giving scholarships away. And I mean, it wouldn't cover everything, but like, whoever wants this opportunity, send this letter. And I sent the letter. I got, and along with your high school diploma and your SAT, like, you had to have everything, SATs, and which I did, because I worked my butt off in high school, and I got in, and it was all online, so I could still, because I wasn't, like, I had to work.
Yeah.
I didn't have a parent that could pay for a dorm, or and I didn't have the ability for a parent to, because I was still under like my dad's stuff. Like, I wasn't able to be like, hey, I don't have any money, give me a full ride, so I had to work full time, and I ended up really loving this church and wanted to get away from my town where the guy still was, and the friend, like, it's not small, like, you will see them, like, around. So I was like, I need to get out of here. And so I found a room to rent through a friend, a girl that I didn't even really know at church. And it was a house in, anyway, so rented a room from there and worked full time at a preschool. I just got this job as a preschool teacher, because I had credits. From the community college, I was working my child development associate's degree, and so because you needed those credits for college, and so I got that job, was working full time, but then I joined this thing called they called it basic training at the church, where it's like I think it's 6 weeks, where it was like hardcore. You're at church pretty much most days, at least 3 times a week.
Wow.
And you're serving. You have like like every week or so you switch ministries and you volunteer, and it was a mega church, and so like this was their like onboarding a volunteer, like yeah, it was really intense. You had to memorize all of John 15, and like you had to show up, you had to be there, you had to be on call, and it was just like I was working full time, and that was like full time. Like it was really intense. But I had thought like how perfect it would be like to get going into this and really not mess up. And but it was just incredible in this, because I was just like, well, now I don't have my psychologist, and what am I going to do? I still have stuff to work through, and because I went to this Christian university now online, which it was it's Hope University. I don't know if it's smaller, but it was.
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's in Southern California, and so I had the ability to go to campus, but I was like, it was far for me, and so I wouldn't be able to do it because of my full-time job. And anyway, so I was still able to go because they offered me free therapy because I was a psych major.
Nice.
And so I got therapy for free, and from a Christian counselor. Like, it was just.
So, I got to stop you right there. How is your opinion of God going now? Like you were pushing him away, you were going back, you're kind of traversing.
It was more of a, from my perspective, like this is obviously not God's perspective, but it was more of like when you get back in a relationship with someone and you guys don't trust each other yet. Like, I felt like, okay, well, I'm taking steps towards you. You take steps towards me. Like, let's fix this together, kind of thing. we've got some stuff we need to work out, Jesus.
He's like, yes, you do.
It was a difficult road in like trusting him, but also knowing like, okay, you are in this, like you're making moves. I see you.
Yeah.
And so I got all, like, seriously, I got all healed up. Like it was something I never thought would happen in my life. And I was living it up. I was single and, at that point I had a better job, but, it was a different job. And I just felt like I was finally at this point of like, just didn't need anybody except for God. Like I was happy and content, I'd say. And I was involved in church. Like after basic training, I got into decision counseling. It's where after the pastor calls up, anybody wants to be saved, and they come to the stage, and then you need systems like this when you're in a mega church.
Right.
So they all, they're all ushered into a room after that, and there I am. I take somebody, like we're all decision counselors, and we just take someone that comes in and like sit down with them and talk to them about their next steps in their faith, and give them a Bible and get them plugged into hopefully basic training. That was our big deal. But yeah, I had it. I feel like I finally arrived at that Christian life I always thought I wanted. Like I always thought that it should look like, and in that time frame of basic training to decision counseling, basic training I joined, and then 2 weeks later my husband joined basic training. And we could talk about that later, like, but he was a jerk, and then I didn't like him, and then we ended up being decision counselors together, and I'm like, oh gosh, I have to be in ministry with this guy. And we ended up doing like a ministry. We were us leaders. I was a leader of the decision counselors, and so a few of us leaders got together every Monday night to start this new like basic Christianity 101 ministry. And so he was a leader too, so he had to be there. And anyway, so I met my husband, but so I didn't want anything to do with him. And it was like for a year probably we were around each other. But he was like my first encounter with him, he was mean to me. And but it turned out, okay, just because we're here now, I'm just going to say, because it was because he was a new Christian, and he was at a party. It was Super Bowl party for basic training, like no smoking, no alcohol, no nothing. And it was like completely out of his element. Like he's like, what am I doing here? And so he was a little short, and he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember that at all. So anyway, I'm working around this guy for about, I think it was about a year. And then I didn't want any boy. I was so set. Like I was like, I could buy whatever I wanted. And, you know, like it was such a sweet few months because we started hanging out and dating. And then, we were dating 2 months. He asked me to marry him, and then we were married 2 months later. Months total. I'm like, so if you're single, just get confident and independent and loving life, and then that'll happen. Oh goodness. So I'd say like it's hard because I also feel this is I'll keep saying that abnormal word, that there were so many testimonies that I heard from people that like, one day I became a believer and everything was different, and I changed and I was different, and that didn't happen for me. It was a very long, slow, horrible crawl. And I don't, that's different. That I felt like that was, I don't know if you resonate with that at all, or because like I mean I wasn't raised Christian, and I like had to like crawl myself into this lifestyle.
Yeah. It reminds me, I mean, I don't identify with that personally because I had a really radical salvation experience.
Yeah.
It was like Acts chapter 9 type of thing with the Apostle Paul. But what reminded me, what the scripture that popped in my head when you were saying like it was a long, horrible crawl was just that the Lord is my shepherd, you know, and I just think about this meandering flock of sheep kind of going around, and they're going at their own pace, and the shepherd just kind of goes at the right pace for them. And I just think about all the things that you had to endure, from the verbal abuse to the, you know, from your stepmom, and then the trauma of her, what she did to herself, and then the rape, and just all, you know, your family life was just exploded. There was no like strong foundation. And you were a lot of, it sounds like a lot, you were just making decisions on your own. You were just doing things on your own. And I just see the hand of God just graciously over you, even though these things were happening, they were terrible, and he knew your heart and how they were going to twist you up. But he also, you know, had a plan to bring glory out of it. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, you went through a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trauma. And I mean, the fact that you're sitting here today and you're still, and you're married, you have children, you have ministry for the Lord. And what a testimony of God's faithfulness, you know?
When I first had, you know, the idea of coming on to a podcast called All Out War, I just had to chuckle, because that had always been my, like, this is just an all out war, like my whole life. Like it's just been a constant uphill fight, just a battle of
Yeah.
like, there's so many times throughout this whole timeline, and I'm not even saying all of it, but like the gist of it here. But there's so many ways this could have gone.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's this song that people are probably going to come after me. This person sings it, because I don't actually know who sings it, but it's like the look where I'm standing now. Like, it's a Christian song that's popular right now, but it's look where I'm standing now. And it just takes my breath away, like every single time I hear that, because it's like this literally could have gone so many different ways, and Satan had his claws in me.
Yeah.
It was just like, there's so many times in my life I could have died, like by myself, or like there's been a few like pretty harsh car accidents, like even like I was born emergency C-section because I couldn't breathe. Like, there's just like it's constant. Like, I was in a tornado 4 years ago, y'all. Like,
well, you know what else I think about too, Jess, is that the work of God in the life of a believer, it always has opposition. Like, when you were talking about war, it's war. We really don't understand the war until you get into the light and until you really are saved. Mm-hmm. And you realize, man, a lot of what was going on in your life was from that 8-year-old confession of faith. God put his hand on you and he sealed you, like you said, and everything with the enemy did not want to see you take your place, that, as an adopted child of God, and really receive the truth of who your identity is in Christ, and that you're not a forgotten person, that you are marked by God. And literally, when you were 8, he already knew the things he wanted to do with you and through your life. But the enemy obviously is trying to stop all those things. He does it in all of our lives, right? Anyone who anyone who's on the side of truth will face persecution, right? And even if you don't realize you're on the side of truth, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're getting it and you're just collateral damage. But at the same time, I see it like I'm not, a prophet, or don't claim to be, don't want to be. But I would say that it sounds like to me, from everything you're telling me, that it seems like that the enemy was really trying to put a lot of roadblocks in front of you to keep you from really living that surrendered life. I mean, I don't know how the spirit realm works in the terms of what they can see, but I know that the Bible tells us that we're a light, right? He says that we're a light, we shine in darkness. And obviously, and John tells us too, the light came into the world and darkness couldn't overcome it. When a person's saved, we're a light. And at 8 years old, your candle got lit. You got lit. You know what I mean?
And that's part of like the big reason. Like, there's so many like parts on this timeline. You could have gone back and said, Jess, she's not a Christian. Like, so many times you could have, like, you get this one glimpse of one of these areas that I had a really dark season, or just really rebelled against God, and you could look at me and be like, she didn't have any fruit, she's not Christian,
right? And
it's so popular right now for people to try to determine that somebody's salvation, and because of the fruit. I hear that constantly. I just want to, like, you don't even know somebody's road to sanctification. Like, you don't know.
Well, they just need to crack their Bible, because every key player had huge issues. Yeah. I mean, every key player. Moses murdered someone. Yeah. David, same thing, plotted murder, had adulterous affair. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Thomas doubted, right? If you know the story of Thomas, he went on to be, like, his martyrdom was insane, the way that he died for Christ. Like, this dude gave his life for Jesus, and then he was like, he's or not was it Tom? Yeah, Thomas, doubting Thomas. Like that's the nickname that we remember him by, but yet he gave his life for Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't let the end of the story is not written yet.
Right. Yeah. And like you can see a person and judge the fruits and see like, hey, you know what? I'm probably not going to get advice from this person right now, but you have absolutely no room to judge their salvation. You don't know.
Right.
That's what, like, if they say they're Christian, act accordingly.
Yeah.
Uphold them in the word. Hold
Yeah.
them accountable. See if they need something. Like,
Right. Yeah.
when you talk about like the people in the Bible and the people that have messed up in the Bible, and that's really all I had to like hold on to, because churches don't talk about my kinds of stories. Like, right. At least the ones I was going to, like, I didn't know. I felt like I was figuring it out by myself all the time, and like, with a few key friends that the Lord blessed me with, but it was I related most to Scripture and not churches, like, because these people, like, oh yeah, they messed up too. Okay, they messed up, like he messed up too, and I was able to, and that's what, like, the word got me through. Like the straight word was just like my guiding light, like that.
Yeah. Amen.
Now I kind of more relate to Ezekiel, which I don't ever thought I would. Just doing crazy things to warn people of coming.
Well, you've got plenty of dung on your farm over there, so you could make a fire and bake some cookies and.
I'm the crazy person warning everybody.
No, well, that's the call of the church too.
Mm-hmm.
We're called to share. That's the commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just telling you, hearing your story, there's so many things that are just like, just one of those things to pick out to go through would be really bad and hard. I don't blame you for being like, God, how dare you,
Mm-hmm.
and tossing your Bible. And believe me, I've been there before, and like, what in the world are you doing? Why are you letting these things happen? Mm-hmm. And I think we need to go through those times. I think we need to actually ask God that question honestly, because if you don't, you're just pretending. I really believe that. And I think you need to gut honestly say that to God so that he can honestly answer that back and show you in time what he is doing, or what he was doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But man, I'm blessed by your testimony. That's a crazy, and to think that you thought you were invisible is, like, I can see why that would be the lie that the enemy would want to say, because how God is using you now, right?
Yeah.
On Instagram, and then the Bible timeline, and then the other things that you're working on. I just think that they're anything but invisible.
Yeah.
And that's what the enemy wants you to do, is just become invisible.
Yeah. And just to say to that, like, that's what, like, the whole line, look where I'm standing now. Like, I like, old me, any part of like my history, me even up until like 4 years ago, would absolutely cringe if they saw what I was doing right now. Like, you're talking to people like online, like, about the Bible. Like, you're willingly going on a podcast for anybody to just listen to it. This is not like the person I ever was. Like, I was always very introverted, always very like, don't look at me, please. And I mean, in that sense, I hope nobody looks at me still. Like, I'm always telling people, go to your Bible. Like, don't just agree with me. Like, go measure it to Scripture. But yeah, that's it's still a common theme, even in my adult life, of like, we lived in Oregon for a few years, and I was kind of surrounded by a unique group of individuals that were like very influential. and in the Christian realm, and which I mean, the majority are incredible. But I got to see like the behind the scenes of the people that everybody thinks they're incredible and not, and they're Christian and they're sharing all of the things, and it's like, and I was, I had my own little meek little. I've always loved to write, and I. Being a stay-at-home mom, I'm like, I'm just going to have an outlet of a blog, and my mom and my husband read it. It was nothing ever influential. But anyway, so I had always thought like why do just seeing behind the scenes of some stuff, and even now being have a more of a sphere of influence, I'll say, on Instagram, and seeing the behind the scenes of some other people that people like Christians that people share constantly. Like I've seen the behind the scenes, and it's not pretty on a lot of them. And there's times that I'm just like, there have been times, I won't say that now, but like I'm like, why did you get to give them a microphone, God? Like, what is this for? Like, and it was really hard for me to like, that was the whole, like, it was only up until this past year that my account grew, and I'm talking more and more about Bible prophecy. But I worked really hard on my Instagram for years, and it never grew. So I'm like, what? It was just another, like, what am I doing wrong? And turns out I needed to talk about Bible prop. That's what God wanted me to talk about.
Well,
and
I can tell you, two things I do want to say. One is you're in good company, especially with me, and when Rosie, whenever he comes back, if he ever comes back, which I think he will, but you are in good company in terms of the background and your history, and like you're like, what in the world? And this whole like sketchy, like you would call it sketchy, or other Christians, proper Christians might call it sketchy or whatever. You're in great company, because that's our story, that's our thing, and being real is what it's really about. It really doesn't matter what kind of veneer we put on it, and it looks so good, but then on the outside, on the inside, it's just not working well. There's no point in that,
And that's what really drew me to y'all's podcast. Like I wasn't a podcast listener, and my friend told me to listen to a few, and like, you're the one, like, I listened to a few, and like, you're the one I grabbed onto. I'm like, okay, I can listen to these guys. But I need the real and the raw, like people talking about being messy, and like, hey, you know what? I screwed up. That was really prideful. Say it honestly, like say things honestly, and say the things that people are struggling with, like the whole, like you and Rosie know, I kind of dived a little deeper with y'all about the demonic stuff, but I'm like, that was never anything I ever got help with, because no one wants, it's not the squeaky clean Christian looking lifestyle. Like it's it's messy, and I really feel like Jesus was in the messy. He wasn't in squeaky clean, look at me Christian lifestyle.
Yes. And thank God he was, because I don't know if I would be qualified to get saved otherwise.
Yeah. And that's it. For anyone listening like that, through all of this, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't dive into, but in a lot of the story was a lot of church hurt. A lot of leaders did not do well with me, and in helping someone like me. And I hope if you get this from the story, that like you will, like, humans are humans, and they run churches, but that's not God. And God is still with you. He still wants you to gather with them, no matter how imperfect they are. And open up your Bible and read it, for what it is. Like, and he will absolutely guide you. And maybe you're the one that, like, keep going to church and, I mean, find a solid one, but even in that, it's not going to be perfect, but keep going. And if you have the messy story, the story that nobody really ever talks about, like, be the voice with it there, bring it to light.
Yeah. There's
Because
more.
someone else is struggling.
That's right. I would say there's more people than you realize that are actually in that same position that would benefit. They're just kind of holding it together to look a certain way. Yeah.
I'll say I've been through a bunch of churches. I've, like, Southern California, moving to Oregon, and then here, Tennessee, and it's like I kept showing up, even if it hurt. I get a lot of messages of, like, oh, church hurt, and I can't ever go back to church. Just find a different one. Yeah. Like, there's plenty, and God will lead you. Like, I prayed and prayed. He finally led us to a solid church here in Tennessee, and he is so faithful to do so, and he will do that for you too.
Yeah, I agree. Church hurt's some of the worst hurt, and it's painful, and the enemy knows it, and so obviously he's going to try and exploit it. But yeah, as someone who served on the leadership side of churches, like, I was a pastor for many, many years in a church, and I was also someone who has some real church hurt. I know that I probably didn't do it well as a leader. There's probably people that are hurt, because of the way I led. I'm not asking you to reach out to me or anything like that, but I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose, if that helps.
Oh man, there's another question that people, like, they want to know how I was raised, because it will be like that aha moment of, oh, that's why Jess believes in this theology or eschatology, because she was raised that way.
Right.
So, y'all have no excuse of why I am a pre-trib dispensationalist. I found that in the Bible by myself with God.
That's awesome. See, if you read the Bible, the Holy Spirit will teach you, and that's good. It all works out. Man. Well, this has been awesome, Jess, and I really hope that the listeners that heard this, and that are anyone that's listening to this right now, that it blesses you, and you realize that, normal people, lots of real life issues, and but a good God who's gracious and faithful, and and I hope also too that this gives people a chance to get to know you, so that as we move forward, they'll connect with you better and know where you're coming from. That's really important, Yeah. And man, I don't even know where to go from this. So
thanks so much for letting me say all of that. My first time ever saying it publicly. I hope that it helps somebody out there.
Yeah. And just reach out to her on her Instagram if you have questions.
I'm always out there.
Yeah. And if you reach out to us on All Out War, I can direct them towards her too. That's fine. I know she probably gets a ton of messages. So, but, man. Well, this has been awesome. I'm about to lose my voice for some reason, so we should probably sign out from here. But we're going to continue to record, guys, and pretty soon we will be in our new studios, or I will be in our new studios, and we're going to get Jess a new microphone soon, so things are going to get better. But we really appreciate all of our listeners hanging out with us and hanging in there, and we're excited about this new season. Pray for us as we move forward. We're excited about things, and Jess, I'm excited to have you on, so it's going to be cool. All right. Well, everybody, we'll catch you next time on All Out War.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the All Out War podcast today. If you had a blast, then we'd love to have you back for another episode, so please subscribe and leave a review. We love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram at All Out War Podcast or on Twitter at AOWcast. These episodes are also available on YouTube, unless they contain a little too much truth. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.